faith over fear? What does it mean to have faith over fear? It means taking your faith and using it over your fear. It's fighting fear with faith. You take your faith and you go over your fear over faith. With faith over... Okay, let's take a step back. Take a step back. We don't need to be too serious here, all right? We're here to have a good time. Let's try something different. Yes, our theme is faith over fear. Sounds intimidating, right? Well, it can be. Fears can range from the sun exploding to your next day of school to what you're doing in 5 years. You could find fear and uncertainty in anything and everything if you look hard enough. So what does faith do for you? Well, before we get into that, I want to tell you the story of a man named Richard Johnson. He was born in England way back in 1756 when the average person lived to 35 and people were arrested for really tiny crimes. He went into ministry, serving a handful of churches as assistants for 2 years in different parts of England, during which he became friends with two important people, John Newton, a pastor known for writing Amazing Grace, and William Wilberforce, who was a key figure in ending slavery in England. At the time, England was a pretty unforgiving country. You could be arrested and put in jail for years for something as small as stealing a loaf of bread or a bundle of string. Not exaggerating either, a man named Henry Davenport was sentenced to 7 years for stealing beans. Putting everyone in jail for tiny crimes, unsurprisingly, meant that the jails got really full really quick. And what do you do when you have too many prisoners and no prisons? Make countries prisons, which is exactly what England did. Called penal colonies, these were settlements put around the world in places they discovered where they could just dump prisoners. Australia, the country down under, was chosen as one of these penal colonies. The first voyage of these prisoners consisted of 9 ships, 1,400 people, and took 250 days to arrive in Australia. 250 days! And the one and only pastor chosen for the colony? You guessed it, Richard Johnson. Someone who had never traveled outside the country, let alone 15,000 miles of ocean. Now there's a lot to be afraid of here. He was a newer preacher, had never traveled the world, was being sent with several hundred pretty angry prisoners, some of who didn't deserve the punishment, with a crazy long journey ahead of them and no certain future when they got there, with the heavy duty of leading these people to Christ and being one of the only voices of morality in the community. But not only did he accept the appointment, he fought hard for it. His first sermon in Sydney in 1788 was based on the verse, "What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits towards me?" Psalm 116:12. When he arrived in Australia, it took him 4 years of preaching in a field before he was finally able to get a building. Using $7,000 in today's money, he built a church that could hold 500 people, which, though it was a flimsy building, was a huge achievement. He was a hard worker in the community and taught with what was described as a kindness, spirit of unity, and simplicity that were truly of the gospel. Now, I'm not asking you to move to Australia and become a farmer, preacher, teacher. What I am asking you to do is remember that fears are everywhere, both in things we want to do and that happen to us. 1 Samuel 12:24 says, "Only fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart, for consider what great things he has done for you." This week there will be many challenges, but whatever may happen, try to keep your faith over fear.